And welcome in. Good morning, Brew with Jaffe and Razor. This one is the season wrap show as far as the Boston Bruins on-ice performance, stuff going on. This is the big one to end the year on. Now, we're going to do other shows, folks. We'll probably do a show after next week, after management talks. But we wanted to get a big, meaty one in right now as the Boston Bruins season came to an end on Tuesday night. This is Thursday, midday, as Razor and I sit here and record this one. And a reminder that the Boston Bruins, I don't need to remind you they didn't make the playoffs, but they had a tough season. So Razor and I, we got a lot to go over. This is Razor going to be a very different season wrap show than we've done in previous Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razors. Let's not forget, folks, that Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor is proudly presented by Fazenda Coffee. We can't thank them enough for being our lead in-pod sponsor the entire season. FazendaCoffee.com, the place to go to check out all things Fazenda. Or if you want specifically the Morning Brew blend, the Morning Brew hats, or the clean canteen, go to FazendaCoffee.com/Morning Brew. They've got it all for you, folks. They are fantastic people in addition to having awesome products. Check out FazendaCoffee.com, the lead in-pod sponsor for Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. All right, Razor. You ready for this one? Do we where do we go? Where do we dive in with this one? Because again, and I think it's important to recognize to reemphasize, Bud, that to people listening that we don't prepare, like we don't prepare. When I say prepare for this show, we don't sit and talk for 2 hours and have an outline and all that stuff. We just sit down and we go at it. And again, very different season. Where do you want to start with this one? I'll let you lead, and then I will start. Sure. You tell me where you want to start, and then I'll get going.
Well, it's funny because this year, when this happens, and you see it, you've seen it over the last 10 days, and you saw it today, I think, in the dressing room. There's not a lot of sadness or disappointment anymore, or overt disappointment. Of course, everyone's disappointed. We heard a lot of that kind of language, but yeah. It's been processed for 3 weeks now. They knew they weren't doing this, and we knew they weren't making it. And the entire thing's been processed rather than the last few years where, up until 5 days before doing this show, you're thinking they can win the Stanley Cup still. So, and much different vibe, around the team the last few days. I didn't go to the rink today, but seeing guys, talking to guys after the last game, and have been in that position, it's relief. It's like, thank God this is over. And you want to do your exit interview today and talk about how bad the season was, talk about how you're going to reset, talk about how things need to get better. But at the end of the day, you really don't get to prove that reset until September. And it's going to be a really long time for these guys. And it'll be nice to get away right now. There's so much excitement to get this done, get it over with and move on. But by the middle of the summer, they're going to be chomping at the bit to prove that there's changes that in the positive way, in the positive ledger, come next training camp.
Well, yeah, we obviously hope so. We don't know what that's going to be, but the changes are going to have to be significant to give everybody, I think, the necessary boost, the necessary jam, right? Talking about the necessary stuff. And I'm going to be curious to hear, and I'm not looking to move ahead 4 to 6 months already, but I'm going to be curious to hear how much time guys actually took off, given the demise of the season. The 76 points this year equals the 76 points from the 06-07 season. That's the worst they've had in a full season, the lowest point overall total. I mean, their record was 33, 39, and 10. I care about the record, but more or less it's the points that matter to me. 76 points. Again, since the 06-07 season, they haven't been down to that low in forever. And their goals, 4 goals against, plus minus, a minus 50. Very telling, incredibly telling, obviously. Not the worst, by the way, in the league. There's a couple of other teams in the West below them, but those were striking. But I'm curious, Bud, how quickly guys do want to get back. And I don't mean just going, you can't go, balls to the wall, May 1st, but really getting going. I'm guessing most guys will take 2 to 4 weeks off and then get back at it. And I think a lot of guys, again, are going to be going hard at it earlier, maybe take more of a little rest in the middle of the summer, if only because there's so much time. These guys aren't used to having this much time off.
No, they're not in this, and they'll have the World Championship, so that'll keep guys going here for another month. The ones that are doing that, you're right. The other guys, they shut it down pretty good here for a month. I've talked to a couple of my buddies who have NHL guys back home that they're looking like kind of the way guys are nowadays, and the much more dialed in, much more eager to get back in the gym than the generation prior to them. They're saying 3 weeks, basically, kind of that most guys are gearing up for a couple of hard weeks before Memorial Day weekend, take off Memorial Day weekend, and then get back into it full swing in June. So yeah, there won't be a lot of time taken off. And again, it'll be extremely long. So there's a lot of pace involved and a lot of planning. That again, the teams that go to the end of June, they don't plan. They just kind of make it up as they go. Or when you don't make the playoffs, you do a lot of planning to be at peak performance September 15th.
The only advantage to this, and I say this not tongue in cheek, I'm saying this seriously. I mean, there's a couple of things. Guys can heal if they have something significant. They can heal longer, which is always nice, right? They can get more time for their body to reset. Usually, if you're not a full-year resident of the city you're in, so we'll use Boston as this example. If you don't have kids too, you can go on vacation, you can go away, you can go back to your home base, and that feels good for these guys, right? And it does, if there are guys that know that need to work on certain things, it gives you more time to work on certain things. Besides that, I don't know if there's really any positives to this. I understand, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say the other thing too, though, is there's going to be 8 other teams with them in the matter of 10 days. So it's not like
but they're not the Boston Bruins. That's the difference. We're not.
No, I know, but again, it's there's only going to be about 150 guys in the league playing in May, and that's going to dwindle quickly too. So this isn't, again, that first round loss is very similar to this. Guys are basically on the same schedule, the same path. So either Dallas or Colorado, either Florida or Tampa. Those guys are going to kind of have the same kind of summer as the Boston Bruins do. So that's the other side of this too. That the way we're looking at it, most guys kind of have this amount of time.
Yeah, but I would argue though that it's such a different vibe for the Boston Bruins, given that they thought they were going to be playing at least in the first round of the playoffs.
Yeah, sure, as an organization, but not as individual players, I don't think. Individual guys are just trying to be their best next year. You're not really, you really don't, again, as a team, and of course, some of the big guys that struggled and that were a huge, but David Pastrnak doesn't have to do too much different than what he would have done if they lost in the first round. Sure. I guess is my point. He's got his thing. So the McAvoy, Lindholm, those guys are different because they haven't played all season or for a very long time. But
Pasta may be the only guy, Razor, literally on this roster.
Well,
Pasta may be but Geeky's going to be. Geeky didn't start the year great, and we'll have a different contract. Hopefully, when he comes back. So it's going to be different. I think if you look at that big picture that you're just talking about there individually, Pasta might literally be the only guy that can kind of remain true to that same mental and physical regiment over the summer. And my take, you can tell me I'm full of it, and I'm happy to hear that. I'm just thinking, Geeky's coming back with expectations that he never had before. He's going to be.
It's going to be pretty easy though when you have 25 million more in the bank account to do that too. It's going to be easy to do that. It will be.
But okay. Listen, again, we don't prep. So let me ask you this then, partner. With that same thing, why wouldn't it have been easier for Swayman? I know there was a holdout. I know there was a contract impasse. We're saying that there's not going to be one for Morgan Geeky, and I hope there isn't. We don't know, but it wasn't easy for Sway.
No, but the summer was though. I'm not saying next season's going to be easy for Geekie, but I'm saying the summer, like right now, how Morgan Geekie feels is he's never felt this good ever in his life. Just like Swayman the day they lost to Florida, he has never felt that good in his life because he knew he was going to be rich beyond his wildest dreams. So that's what I mean, like just
I
going
got you.
into
Okay.
this summer.
All right.
I don't know how any of it translates into next year. That we're way too far away from that. But I'm saying this moment, Morgan Geekie's going to have the best summer of his entire life.
Yes.
That's
Okay.
what I mean.
I
And
got
just
you.
like Swayman did last year.
Yeah, he's talking to a different type of investment banker right
Correct.
now.
He's looking at fancy cottages and summer houses and
Well, he's
his
a good
vacation.
Manitoba boy. He might not. He might not.
Well,
He
no, he's
might
still
keep
going to
his
get
head
a
down.
hunt camp or something, buy 200 acres in the middle of Manitoba. And I bet he's staying, at a nicer hotel than he would have last summer when he goes on this vacation next week.
We should try and get him on after his vacay. We should.
Yeah.
We should try and sit down.
Great to
He's
talk.
very
He's
articulate,
awesome to talk to.
very cerebral. Let's just start with a couple of things that came out of the media day. Neither you or I were at media day, and that's fine. I mean, it's a whole rigmarole type thing. One, Elias Lindholm talked, and he talked about his back injury he had in suffered in August. That impacted him in hindsight significantly. We knew he was dealing with something. We didn't know what it was.
Yeah.
Back injuries for anybody out there. I've had back issues before. I don't know if you've had any back issues, Razor. You're lucky. Holy shit, you're lucky. And anybody out there listening who would understand back issues, as a pro athlete, it amplifies it perhaps even more. It just, everything goes through it.
Yep.
We still don't know the root of it. Regardless, he's much healthier now. Yes, he finished well, but does that, knowing what it was, just actually having a tangible diagnosis, does that do anything more for you than just say, all right, well, I get it. That's why his start was impacted.
Yeah, it does. Yes. It doesn't matter, I guess, is on the other side of it, right? Like you don't get a pass for, the way it went, but it certainly doesn't help. And it's certainly, I think you could, if you want to be optimistic about it, you can certainly look at that and then look at how he's finished the season and being healthier and feeling better since Four Nations, getting, a little bit of time there, a little bit of rest, and a little bit of rehab, and a little bit of work. So but it doesn't matter. He can't, he can't use that, but it does tell a story. It does give some context to the start of the season. And again, we talked about him and how hard it is when you're a veteran guy and you're not living up to your performance, how to be a leader and how you fit into the dressing room. It's hard to do that. It really is. And, you expect that to change and you hope there's no back injuries and you just get a full summer of being here and being around everybody and being more comfortable for next year. It didn't help his comfort level. I guess that's the way to put it best is a back injury in August just doesn't allow you to get comfortable at any point all season.
Yeah, right. I couldn't agree with you more, but yet he played all 82. So I'm trying to figure out if I'm really impressed that he battled through something, or I say, why didn't you just take a couple of weeks off? I mean, I don't know, because obviously it was manageable,
Yeah.
that's what I'm guessing, but I guess manageable and being able to really shine are two different things. Agreed? I mean, but he played all 82. He ended up getting 47 points. He was 55% in the faceoff circle. Nowhere near as impactful as I wanted to see him be. Better at the end, but ... Does that really matter? Does it translate to next year? Only time will tell. But I want more than 60 points, but I think 60 would be my ideal, the 65 points out of him. We can't see another year below 50. Would you agree with that, Razor?
Well, the only way that works is if they find power play pieces that he isn't a part of the first unit, but he can support the second and still be on the top line and gets 50 5-on-5 time, right? Like that's where they didn't get points. because the reality is 47 is pretty good with how bad the power play was. I don't have his power play points pulled up, but he didn't have a lot of those because nobody on the team had a lot of those.
Yeah.
Which means his 5-on-5 scoring wasn't terrible at the end because of the run he went on at the end. So 50 to 55 is fine if he's not on the power play one. And they find power play one guys here in the offseason and find a way to make the top unit work. And he continues to be a great two-way center at 55% in the draw, 55% on the top line with Geekie and Pasta. They both get 35 goals each, and he facilitates that way. That will be okay. But again, it's completely dependent on 5 other players playing on the power play one.
I agree. But I got to see him. So one way or another, I think he'll toggle. Thank you, Bruce Cassidy, between PP1 and 2, no matter what. He had this past year, he had 2 power play goals, 12 power play assists.
Yeah, that's okay. So he had 35 5-on-5 points.
Right. But to me, it's 7.7, something you need. I understand the number isn't his fault per se. They offer it to him, but for that money, I need 60 points. I just do. I want it. I need it. The team.
Well, the good news for him, there's going to be a bunch of guys that signed $7 million contracts that are worse than him this year. So the number of the dollar isn't going to be.
I get it.
It really won't be an issue for him in the maybe next year, but the year after, there's going to be a ton of guys making $9 million that you've never heard of.
Right.
So that's good for him.
Can't believe we're making that. All right. The other thing that came out, and I want to start really going, I want to go goaltending, defense, forwards, and just kind of run through them and riff on that stuff. But Jonas Korpisalo talked about, I'm paraphrasing, that no goalie in the league would really be happy playing just, was it 25? What do you say, 22 to 25 games? Or that, it was a nice way of saying he wants more.
Yep.
It was.
Yeah. He's been a pro. He's played a bunch of games. He's being honest. So, I think in a perfect world, the Bruins are a better team, and he probably gets more starts through the middle of the season in January, especially where they really rode Swayman, hoping to get into the playoffs, and felt like they needed to run him to get him back to a good place, but also get in the playoffs with your number one guy and point out that he's the number one guy. That I think would change next year if Jeremy's playing well and the Bruins are winning games. I think you would see Korpisalo get more starts. So that's the best way to push, and that's the best way to get up to the 30 mark. Because really, the second guy is fine if you get to 30. That feels like you're part of the team. 20 makes you feel like you're not.
Okay. I'm going to ask you an unfair question, but I have to. Should he get more? And do you think that this is just a nice way of saying, maybe I want to look somewhere else? And it's unfair, beg your pardon, because you don't have a chance to talk to him, and I'm asking you to get inside of somebody else's head. But I think it's a fair question to ask, given that, this has been out there.
No, I don't think this is a way to be like, I want to get dealt. It doesn't do him any good to do that. I think, again, he was just being very, he's a Finn. They're very honest. Typically he got asked a question and he answered the question. So I only take that out of it. I think he does deserve to play that. I think it works better. I think the Bruins have done this forever. That 52-30 split is just worked very well for the way they see the position. And I think, again, that was somewhat of the plan, even though Jeremy signed the big deal to not have him get to 57. I think they would have rathered him at 53, 54 and been in the playoffs and been able to spread things out a little bit more. And they did that with Timmy. They did that with Tuukka. They've done that all the way through. So my guess is that's they probably talked about 30 at the start of the year, and it backed off. And that would be also where that honesty comes from.
I told you in the last pod, and I've talked about a few times, I love talking with Jonas Korpisalo all year. He was very amenable, agreeable, and incredibly honest. He's got a beautiful matter-of-factness about him. in how he presents himself, and it's very calming at the same time too. It's like I've taken a Sunset Lake CBD gummy before I go
There you
talk
go.
to them. It's very calming talking. They should have a Corpusalo gummy. How about that?
I like it.
And it's direct, but yet calming. I don't know if that's a good mix. All right, so where does that leave now? Let's go to Jeremy Swayman. Boy, we've talked a ton, understandably so, about him this year. Where would you, if you had to give him a grade, an A through F, where do you grade him? And I know it's the totality of the season. He had moments of, I don't know if I guess he had a couple of moments where he was an A guy, but I was saying in the A minus, B plus. He had moments of that. He had a lot of moments I felt in the mid-seas, a little below at times. Overall, Razor, I'm willing to call it an average. So I guess that would be C plus, maybe. Could you bump it to a B minus here or there? Where would you, the goalie, former expert, the former goalie, give it?
It's got to be in the C's. It's
Yeah.
got to be, whether it's a C or a C plus. I don't know what those percentages are.
I got you.
But it's in there. You're right. He didn't have a 2-week stretch of A. And then on the other side, the flip side, I didn't think he really had 2 weeks of F either.
Right.
I think he had some circumstance in front of him on the nights where he gave up 7 and 8 goals, whether it was Dallas or Winnipeg. Those stand out, where 5 in the third, guys weren't anywhere near to be found, and he kind of took it on the chin numbers wise. So that's those situations. I don't consider them F. I don't remember, like, it wasn't like there was a 3-week stretch where he just lost the team games on his own.
I'd agree.
There's also not the 3 weeks where he was Igor Shesterkin, where he just took the team on a run and was first star of the week 3 weeks in a row, something like that. That didn't happen either. So it was just a really average season for him. And coming off of last year, coming off the first 2 years of his career, coming off the contract, the noise, etc., average just wasn't ever going to allow him to escape criticism this year, and that's where he is.
The longest winning streak individually he had without a regulation loss was 3. It was a game, Montreal, Chicago. It was the Centennial game. Montreal, Chicago, Philly went 3-0. He had a stretch after that where he went 4-0-1, partly on that West Coast trip and then coming back. That was that great stretch for the team going into the holiday, right? Going into the break where we had hope. We did, but that was his longest 3 games, and then 4-1 of regulation wins, and then 4-1 without any loss in regulation as well. I mean, it was, I think people kept waiting for him to go on one of those A+ stretches that you referred to, Bud, where he stole 3 out of 4. But I think with hindsight being 2020 and the amount of interior chances that this team gave up, I'm not saying it wasn't possible, but it would have been Herculean, I think, if he would be able to accomplish that 3-week type of stretch.
Well, that's the thing. He had he didn't have a great start. He had all of the noise, no training camp. So by the time he did ramp up and December was good, you come out into January, it's the team wasn't playing great. And then by the time the Four Nations came, where you really thought, okay, everything's going to come together for this guy. It's all going to piece together. He gets away. There wasn't anything. There was no D in front of him anymore, and the team then sold off, and now you're grinding to get to the end of the season. So you're right. It was, his runway was much shorter, and the front half of the runway was when it was going to be difficult for him, and he didn't get through that, which made the end just as hard because the pieces fell apart. So again, it goes back to that averageness across the board, and now the uncomfortableness of refining your game and what that's that's a again, he doesn't get to prove that he's done that now till October 15th. And he's got the longest wait.
311 goals against, an 892 save percentage, 3,390 minutes of ice time, allowed 176 goals. By far the most games he's appeared in as a pro, 58. Previous high was last year at 44. So what would you tell him going into this offseason? And what would you say? What are we talking type of a program for him to get him back to finding his game? And I agree, the mindset in theory should be very clear compared to last year. With that said, though, there's still a lot of work to be done. So how would you tell him to get going on it?
Well, it's all about basics and being simple and getting back to the feeling you had when you were just a guy. That's the hard part is you can't try and live up to the expectation. And I think what happens naturally when you're in a holdout or when you're hearing things, you're just not around, you come in and you want to prove right away.
Yep.
And again, you start chasing something that isn't attainable. So I think, again, my advice, a recommendation, my thought process would be, okay, right back to basics, right back to this is your first pro year where you're excited about everything, interested about everything, thinking about everything, but just going and playing your game, not trying to live up to anything, not trying to chase anything, not trying to be a leader, not trying to be an all-star, not trying to do anything but just stay and be a good NHLer and win games. That's really the best way to approach this, and the way that you can control it the best is to go all the way back to basics and recognize that trying to do too much doesn't work in this league, no matter if you're getting paid 8 or 1.
Yeah. I go back to that LA game finally, where I feel like a very small reset happened after that. I don't know if he talked to anybody about it, but I do feel like he started to be refocused and more on what you're kind of talking about. He's got a long way to go, but I'm saying, like, I kind of felt like he had that moment, the light was shining on it, and then, okay, reset now. A mini reset in season here, and now a big one's coming. That's where I think. And I think there has to be more of it. And I sure hope for him, for the team, for the support of the fans, etc., that I hope it happens. It really does, because it's dumb. This is such a dumb, obvious comment, but it's paramount to the success for this team.
Oh, yeah, it has to. It has to. So there'll be, again, there's going to be some tough conversations. There's going to be some, it's not going to be an enjoyable, again, like the opposite of geeky, where he's just going to have an unbelievable meeting. He's going to have an unbelievable couple of weeks. He's going to talk to his agent and be like, holy shit, they're going to pay me that much. Like, I'm actually worth that much. He probably hasn't thought about it very much. The opposite is this month is going to, a few weeks is going to kind of suck for Jeremy, because you're going to have shitty meetings. You're going to have people telling you what you need to do, and you're going to have to clear through all of that and really reflect on yourself.
Let's move to the defense, a position that we hoped, you go back and you listen to us season preview show, we're thinking with everybody in good places, guys are slotted differently. We think it becomes a good area of strength for this team, and it didn't. It didn't work that way. Even when everybody early on was healthy, Razor, team defense and the D crew was not what we wanted to be. Very little offense from the back end for a long time. Lohrei had a couple of moments of real goodness where he dazzled offensively. We know he struggled mightily defense, leading the NHL in plus minus. But in general, without McAvoy and Lindholm for most of the season, McAvoy for a good chunk of it, defense really never had a great chance to get situated. They got to have both those guys healthy. They've got to figure out, I think, I look at 2 guys on that back end there. They got to, how much where do you want to slot Zadorov? How much you playing Peeke? You got to be adding probably 2 guys to that mix back there, assuming, look, this team's going to look different. We know that. But let's start with, I guess, with McAvoy and Lindholm, because of your top 2 defensemen. They would get an inconclusive, what's the word I'm looking for? Inconclusive type grade, because they were around so little, especially Lindholm. Pressure is on them, but they don't get a pass by any stretch. Charlie played more, and Charlie was really intermittent all season long. Lindholm was pretty good when he was healthy. But where do we start with those 2 guys? I mean, just get healthy. That ends up being it.
Yeah, just get healthy and play, and it's gonna, the back end's gonna look night and day from what it did, or from what we can remember it. Looking all the way back before 4 Nations, I don't really recall, and I certainly don't really recall well. All the way before that St. Louis game where Lindholm missed the last 65 games.
Yep.
So it's you're infinitely better just having those 2 guys in the lineup on opening night. Now, really with those guys, there's not a lot to say about it. It's just they're just going to be better. They're both on the ice for at least 40 minutes of the game, and
Yep.
you've got. I'm probably more bullish than most people on Zadorov at this point. I think the way he finished.
I'm with you. No, listen,
I think when you have Lindholm and you have McAvoy playing the entire time, I think Nikito stopped taking penalties. I think he kind of fell into his routine. I think he added what this team needed at times on the back end with his physicality and his, just his intimidation at times. So I think he slots well when those 2 guys are here. He will just play better automatically, and he'll have another year to really understand the penalty kill and what they want from him there. So I think he's settled.
Real quick on Zadorov, and it's a valid point. And I don't disagree with you. Listen to his numbers: 4 goals, 18 assists. That's fine. 145 PIMs. Okay, led the league in that. And when you were playing, that was nothing. You're talking about 250. All right, different time. A plus 25 on this team. I know the caveat, plus minus isn't the end all be all, but that's not too shabby.
It matters when it's that different.
When it's that
just
bad.
Like it matters about Lohrei when we'll get to him.
Right. Okay. The thing about Zadorov to me is going to be less is more. Mm-hmm. Is he capable of regularly being a less is more guy, Razor? That's what we're going to have to find out. I don't mind at times for a man his size, I love his giddy up and go. He skates beautifully. Like he really does. He's got a beautiful stride. It's powerful. But his thought process sometimes is with decisions, it's going to have to be less is more. I don't disagree with you that there has to be, you got to get those 2 other guys back. I'd love to see another one added to make a difference. But if he's that guy, he played over 20 minutes on average for the first time in his career ever. So that's big too. But if he's a 17, 18-minute guy and really focuses on less is more, I'm all in, bud. That's going to be the key, though, to me. Does he accept that? That's going to be the key.
Yeah, and again, there's always going to be forwardness in him. That's what he's been in his entire life, in his career, his personality, everything. He's always going. So I don't know how much less is more, but I think there will be less is more just based off of ice time and having those two guys in front of him.
I'm just talking about situational where he's over aggressive, where he gets behind play, that kind of stuff. Yeah, exactly. That to me, a little more structure. And I do think he started getting that the last third of the season. I
agree. Peeke had a great season. I think if if they're in the playoffs right now, we're looking at him and saying, wow, he was awesome this year. I think the fact that everything kind of went to shit, he's just kind of put into that bucket over here where we're not really going to think about it. But I think him individually, when he goes back and looks at it, I think he gained a lot this year. I think, again, you slot him in a great, in that third pairing role. I think he'll have a good meeting. Like, I think he has a good meeting on the way out, for next season. So
2 years. Yeah. Go, to say 2 years in Columbus, he actually played over 21 minutes per season average. He had an 82-game season and an 80-game season back to back. This was the most games, though, that he's played in a couple of years. Well, 1.5, 76 games. averaged 18:36. Again, I think he's a 17, 18-minute guy on a deeper, healthier back end.
Yeah, exactly. And then so the
We're
two
going,
spots,
yeah.
the two main spots, and this is where I am gonna, I'm still gonna question the Carlo deal. I think we will. I will certainly until I see who they get on the back end, because they had a pretty good four in place, and Carlo was cheap and he was there for 2 more years, and I don't know how they're going to find a guy that does some of that stuff for 4 million or less.
Well,
And
they probably won't, because the cap going up, it'll be a 5 million guy.
correct. So that's that one spot, that right-handed side defensive guy that they're going to need, another penalty kill guy that they're going to need. I'm curious what they do with that. So that's one spot, and then the big one, obviously,
Lohrei.
we left till last for on purpose, is Lohrei, because man, oh man, all the good stuff we said about him on this meeting at the end of last season through the playoffs, his defending, his compete, his shutdown ability, his ability to play against all the good players,
his presence,
it's gone, long gone. And man, oh man, it's going to be interesting how they treat his contract situation. It's going to be interesting how he responds to a contract situation, responds to how that season ended, and if they can he's more than young enough to be able to get back on the rails, but there was it got to lead the league in minus at the number that he led, and the way his minus 30 came about over the last month and a half was staggering. It really was for me.
Yeah, there's I'm really curious to see, to your point, how they deal with it, how he handles it. You don't want to take away his confidence. I don't know if you need to rip him, because he knows that he struggled, right? This player knows, but now you do have to rebuild. Do you see if you can get a defensive special? Do you see if you can get Char to work with him a bit? I'm not being flippant here. I'm being serious. There have been people, I've had multiple people, Razor, reach out to me and say, move Razor to left wing, move Lohrei to left wing. What do you think about that? That should happen. He's this. I'm not ready to do that. I'm not ready. I'll give it one more kick at it, to before I'm ready to do that, because I think I saw too much good last year, and at times this year, when he was instrumental in many games, right? When he was the guy that we kept saying, "Oh, well, Lohrei's been good. Oh, Lohrei did this. Lohrei," like, too much of that, even this year at times, not the last part of the season. But how do you think they go about resetting that? I mean, I know they struggled as a team structurally, defensively, but he had a major impact on that.
Oh, yeah, he did. I don't know, because this is what they've been trying to do for 4 years with him, or since they drafted him. They haven't focused 1 minute of his offensive capabilities or building his game offensively. Since the day they drafted him, it's all about being a better defender. So
Yeah.
I don't know if this gives them, again, as a young guy, you feel pretty invincible, and you feel like it, I know what I'm doing. I'm hopeful that this is, and you always get it as a pro athlete. You at some point you're always going to get humbled, and you're always going to get have an ability to be told you so. I hope that's what this is. I hope he can reflect and say, "Geez, yeah, okay, I get it. I get what everyone's been telling me. That if I'm going to be a full-time guy in this league, that the offense just has to be secondary. It just has to be on certain nights, and I have to understand that and accept it." So I don't know how that happens. Again, to your point, if it's build up or just show all the bad goals and the bad plays, or if it's the other way, or
He's got to
but
work
whatever
on
it
his.
is, it's going to be it's the project of the summer, probably more than Sway, even because Sway's been a pro for a while and he can go back to something. I don't know where Mason goes back to.
Lohrei's got to go back to basic defensive stuff. His stick, his feet,
stick and lane, like
body
compete.
Positioning, his battle in front of the net's got to be better.
Yeah.
And you know what?
He's just got to
He's got to
use
get
more
stronger.
energy defensively. Like there
Yeah.
was times where it looked like he was saving energy to go on a rush, right? And that's just that ain't it.
Can't happen.
No.
Can't happen. You want to utilize this guy and say, I feel good about putting him out there on the power play. Again, parts of the year you did, but the last 30 games when he was a minus 32, you didn't. You just didn't. And the last month, I remember you and I talking, I remember it was on air, off air. I'm like, where is that? We would live with some defensive issues because of the other stuff, and then we stopped seeing it.
Yeah.
So here's to Mason Lohrei resetting, getting after it again. The other defense, we had a gaggle of guys there. You ended up having Wotherspoon. I think they're going to be looking for a couple of depth guys on the back end. I don't know if it'll be Brunet. I don't know anybody from Callahan's a group 6, not sure. But we hit on the big guys. The other thing before we mention our sponsors here, defensive structure, coaching is going to have to be better from top. And we'll get into coaching a little bit later. But I don't know. I wonder if they I wonder, Razor, if they either go back to more of what they did, Claude Bruce, or if they move away from, Montgomery took some of the best of all that and brought his own little in, and then Sacco as well. But I felt they were overcommitting at times in the spaces on the ice where they couldn't recover. They had 2 guys often go at one. They didn't layer like they used to. I'm going to be curious to see what new system they implement. It's obviously going to depend on who ends up being the coach.
Mm-hmm.
But it wouldn't surprise me if we see a different style defensively.
Yeah, well, no, that's right. Then that'll be, again, we're going to find out whatever they do with that, with all these other decisions on our next show, whenever that is, just kind of what direction they're going and what they think was wrong in those situations, and what can be salvaged and what has to be flipped. So we're going to get that story told to us, I think. But certainly it's the story of the summer on top of a few other things.
Wouldn't surprise me if we start seeing some different things, because the game has changed a lot, and because centers have changed, and because the way the movement is now, it's going to, we'll see. Can they do a hybrid type D zone? Hey, maybe they go to something else. We will end up talking about that. Let's quickly talk about the remaining sponsors that make Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor possible. Then we'll hit on our forwards and a couple of other things. We got to thank Graciano Construction. Graciano Construction, you guys know by now, full season sponsor, serving Boston, greater Metro West area. Graciano Construction is the contractor who you want to refresh and revitalize your space. Check out Doug Graciano and his crew at gracianoconstruction.com or call 508-330-7589 to discuss what you are looking to do. gracianoconstruction.com. Awesome people. Speaking of awesome, RTN Realty, Chris Gentile and his staff of 22, they can do it all. Nothing too big or too small for you. If you're looking to buy, sell, or lease a new place in Mass, Rhode Island, or New Hampshire, or if you're looking to rent a place in the Massachusetts area, go check out Chris Gentile. C. Gentile at rtnrealty.com is his email, or you can call him directly at 617-835-0845 for a no-pressure consultation. I know he's helped RC out. He's helping a couple of other buddies of mine out too. He knows the market, got over 2,500 transactions. RTN Realty. Go check it out, rtnrealty.com. And also, if you need to calm down, or you're a little sore, or you're a little angst-ridden still, Razor, about this season, I think Sunset Lake CBD would be a great place to go. You can use the code BRU20 for 20% off your entire order at sunsetlakecbd.com. They grow, harvest, and ship all of its great craft, high-quality CBD products directly from their farm in northern Vermont, straight to your door. So you don't need to go to a place. You don't need to stand in line. You don't need to, find what you're looking for. You can just find it online right there. They got all different types of products. And if you order over $75, Sunset Lake CBD will ship your order for free. Check out sunsetlakecbd.com. We love having them come on, as we do all of our sponsors. They came on late in the season. Big Bruins fans up there in northern Vermont. We really appreciate it. And lastly, Sparks Hockey. Razor, you and I have been using, I don't know how many years now we've been using Sparks, but it's been a long time. And we can't live without it. We can't. I'm not gonna. It's so good. Put it this way: Sparks is so easy to use. I could take 3 Sunset Lake CBD gummies and be just fine using my Sparks machine.
It is that easy. The dogs could do it. It's that good and that great. And again, we talk about in the summertime's just as good to have it because the kids are doing camp, and the last thing you really do want to do is go to a hockey store or go to a rink extra time in the summer. Just as easy to go downstairs, have them bang it out before they do their week-long camp. You can bring it on the road with you. We talk about that all the time. I'll be on the road all of July. I'll probably have it with me and bring it back to Canada. It's just super easy to have and really is a no-brainer any time of the year to pick one up if you don't have it.
Check out sparkshockey.com. Use the code BRU50 for $50 off. Yes, I agree with you. I love my Sparks. All right. Checking out the forwards now. Where do we start there? You want to work from what I would call bottom up, and I don't mean that, bad. I'm just saying fourth line up. Fourth line was good, really good to start the season. And we were celebrating it. A couple of times, I think we said outwardly, I also felt it inwardly that, geez, I kind of want the other lines to start taking over the great production that the fourth line is doing because we know that this isn't going to last forever.
Mm-hmm.
And it didn't. Mark Kastelik was really good when he was healthy, but he had significant injury, head issues, and then neck and symptom issues late in the season. And he should be good for next year. I had a long talk with him the other day. What a really nice kid and gentleman. But it was a different line. And in general, you knew that Kastelik, Koepke, Beecher weren't going to keep it up. But I thought as the season went on, we saw some issues there, even when they were together. Kastelik signed to 3 years. So he's back for sure. Not so sure about the other two, Razor, with regard to, not just contracts, but just, where they stand with the team as far as production. So how would you look at that fourth line? What's your take on that area for the Bruins?
Well, good news is Kastelik's your fourth line center. You picked him up in the trade for Ullmark. He was a great piece in that trade. Plays a great style, brought it every single night, like you said. Big, strong, found his way up in the lineup at different times with injuries, but really he's your fourth line center, and you've got that locked in place for next season. That's the good news. Beyond that, it's up in the air. Beecher is probably the big one. Koepke had a good start, probably find his way somewhere else this season. Someone else will give him a good look. Beecher will be the one that'll be interesting to see how the Bruins deal with that restricted free agency, what they think of him, how they utilize him. He's a first-round pick, so you'll always get a little bit more rope when you're one of those guys. But he just didn't have that good of a year. So, how much are you willing to be patient? So we're going to find the Bruins patient level with their fourth line and with John Beecher in particular.
78 games, 3 goals, 8 assists, 51%, 52% in the face-off circle. I found Beecher very inconsistent. At times, kind of saying, where is he? We need him here. We need to see his speed. We need some more. Good early on, but so I'm curious to see where they go there. Cole Koepke ended up with 10 goals. You're like, that's not bad for your fourth line guy. 10 goals, 7 assists for 17 points, excuse me. Played a lot. He shot more, but I think you can fill that from within.
Yeah.
Or hopefully with some other guys. All right. So now then we look up to what we'll call the third line. It was a mishmash for a while because we had different players, right? I mean, excuse me. You had Brazeau there, Frederick, Coyle-ish at times until then he started playing right wing. So I feel like this is where we start really, my friend, getting into the how many guys up front do they need conversation?
That's right.
Because maybe it's easier to start with what we know is back. Pastrnak, Geekie. We're saying, of course, look, folks, I say Zacha's back. He could be traded. He could be if something happens, right? But I'm saying as we sit here and record today, who could be, who is back? Pastrnak, Geekie, Zacha. Are you in agreement with me?
Oh, yeah. Yeah,
on that?
1,000,000%. Yeah.
Okay. After that, you got Casey Middlestat, who came over in the trade. Husnudinov, who started out really well, but got very quiet the last, 10 games or so. He scored at the end, but it was good. But I think he'll get another look. Would you agree with that one?
Maybe on that one, yeah.
You're a maybe there.
Yeah, I'm not.
Lauko, who is going to go to World Championships. That is a for sure. And I think Zacha is going too. I didn't get a chance to really go over who else. I think the others, there's a couple of undecideds. We know that Korpisalo is not going, or at least he told me that he wasn't invited. But after those other names, back for sure. Lysell, depends how his camp ends up being. Fraser Minton, let's see how he develops. I think they'd love for him to be there, but now you're talking about barely, I don't even know if he'll be 21 by the time camp begins. I can look that up. But after that, am I missing anybody that we're like, slam dunk, gonna be back? I mean, we can get into the whole Marchand thing, but that's a conversation for another time.
Oh, yeah. Well, and then there's Lindholm. So there's
and Lindholm. Well, yeah.
So Kastelik, Lindholm, Zacha, Geekie, Pasta, Middlestat are locks.
Yep.
And then you've essentially, you've got 6 other spots. Okay. Yep. 3 of those are going to go to younger guys. Would be my guess. And then you need to get 3 guys. That would be my guess. And that's not including like a couple of depth guys that they go get, like Kepke. They'll get a couple of those guys as well. But I'm 3 guys that are in the organization, and then 3 guys that they've got to go else and get.
Number 1 issued center or another big scoring winger, or both, I guess, ideally.
Well, I think you're going to draft a centerman. So I think that's where you're going to get your centerman. I think you're more likely to get, because everybody wants a centerman. It's going to be there's not many of them in free agency. I think you're looking for a guy who can just score. More importantly, in the open market, because technically you could go down the middle with Lindholm, Middlestat, a Minton, and a Kastelik. Like you could technically, and with Zacha in the mix too, like you could actually move Zacha to center as well if you wanted to have Lindholm, Middlestat, Zacha, and Kastelik, and then go get 4 wingers. You could do it that way as well. So I think they're in and again, they're going to draft in the top 5. They're going to draft a centerman.
But we just don't know about if after the top 2, if those next level guys, meaning let's say number 3 through 6 that are drafted, are ready to play in the NHL.
Well, they're not going to be in the NHL next year. No, they won't be. Yeah, no. I don't think anybody's ready to play next year in coming out of the draft, unless they have great camps. I don't think anyone's really projected to be a player at that level next year.
I don't know how confident I feel if they go in the season with Lindholm, Middlestat, Minton, Kastelik for big success. How about you?
Well, it would depend on who they get on the wings. If they get a Mitch Marner that drives from the wing, then that's different than if they don't get something like that.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I still need to see more out of Middlestat. I do. He's another. I mean, it's repetitive. He's got a big.
Again, he wasn't as good as Lindholm this year.
No,
for what he did in Boston. So yeah, you don't have that's a huge question mark. What he is. He hasn't shown much in this league for a long time.
He's going to have, and we hope, better wingers, but I got to see even more compete. I got to see more strength, and he's not old, but he's been in the league for a while. 26 years old, 438 career games. With Boston, I think, if I remember correctly, it was 4 goals and 6 points in 18 games. Need more from that.
Well, and to that point, maybe he's a winger, right? Like that'll be interesting how they construct.
Well, that would be different.
Do they put him on do they get a centerman and then he becomes a winger for you? Like that's a possibility too.
I wonder how he would feel about that. I don't know. I'm not sure.
I don't know
if he's played much wing in his career.
Yeah.
He's always been labeled as that number 2 or number 3. There aren't a lot of big time guys because a lot of these guys in free agency already signed their big contracts. We always heard about, the Bruins want to get in on Draisaitl. No shit. Who doesn't want to get in on Draisaitl? By the way, Bruins want to get on Mitch Marner. Duh. Thank you. Yeah. He's asking for Draisaitl money. He wants 14. He's going to get, whether he gets traded to a team and then he can add, that 8th year to that, he's going to get 14. Oh, yeah. It's all said and done.
Yeah.
There's going to be a bunch of teams, a bevy of teams that are going to be looking for him. But
well, I don't think the Bruins are anywhere near him in the ability to get him or to get him anything. I don't see them being anywhere.
I don't see them being in the top tier. Yeah, I don't either.
So that means I threw his name out for reference of somebody who drives a wing. Like David Pastrnak, again, driving a scoring winger that drives the line.
So with all that said, that leads me to believe that they have to consider an RFA offer sheet to somebody. And I'd have to go over the whole list of RFAs to be to understand who really would be,
Yeah, and those are going to be a lot. Those are going to be really hard because everyone has cap space and everyone's going to match after what happened to Edmonton. It was just like a perfect storm last year with Edmonton. So to do that list is even more difficult because you're going to have to not only just find the players, but you're going to have to find the team that doesn't like the player, that doesn't want the player, that, there's just so many circumstances. And again, because Edmonton got burnt, you know how this league works. It's copycat and no one else wants to be the Edmonton Oilers. Everyone's going to just match and deal with it.
Let me run through a few names, just a few. Yeah. I'm just going to go down. They're based on salary, where they're at right now. I mean, and I'm not going to look at Evan Bouchard. Okay. JJ Peterka, Buffalo. Okay. Gabe Vilardi, Winnipeg. Matthew Nyes. He's the big one. He's making $9.25, and then I read about people saying, "Oh, he could get $8 million a year already." I'm like, Jesus. Mason McTavish, Anaheim. Voronkov, Columbus. He's going to get signed. Those guys are all going to get second-year deals. I mean, Will Cooley.
Columbus isn't letting a Voronkov go, no matter what.
Right.
Anybody throw it. That's my point. I
don't see the Rangers giving up on a guy like Cooley, but could that be a guy that you can get some more out of? Maybe, I don't know. Some defensemen: Noah Dobson, Bowen Byram, Jack Quinn. Let me see who else might be interesting. Well, 25-year-old Morgan Frost got traded from Philly to Calgary. Could that be something? Not sure. Utah: Jack McBain. He's a little older, 25. I'm looking for those guys, Razor, in the 25, 26 that perhaps you could find somebody. Dylan Samberg, defenseman, making 1.4. What happens with him? He's had a really good year. Those are the type of players you're looking at that you'd have to consider. Now, those aren't all forwards, but because we're talking forwards here, but there's not a bevy of players that are available.
No, there isn't. That's the moral of the free agent story, whether it's offer sheets or whether it's just flat out sending cash money out the door. There isn't a lot of it. Now there is opportunities to make hockey trades because everyone has money and guys can take a little bit more on or a little bit off. And I think there'll be more opportunities there, but no, the way the league sets up now, everyone signs their guys. And if you're not signed, it's not like the old days where you're trying to really maximize. If you're not signed, you're kind of in a spot of concern.
Speaking of concern, any concern that there was talk about, and I'm not talking about the rumors on radio, but I'm talking, like, was everything copacetic in the locker room? Um, it wasn't a good year, so I understand discord. I get it. A lot of different personalities, Razor. I have no idea what real, if anything happened. What really, I'm not sitting in the locker room right there. Is there any concern with where that? And do you think that a lot of it just ends up being, shitty season leads to a lot of guys just wanting to get better and calling each other out? And again, I'm not saying it was, but there was stuff going on, like there's a different energy, a different vibe. Publicly, it was stuff out there. Where I guess, what do you make of all that? That's really the long-winded way of getting to what do you make of it?
I make it mostly because they lost. That is just inevitable. Especially in a town like this that has 2 sports talk radio stations and a bunch of shows that do better when they can kick up dirt. I think that again, and then on top of it, you had 4 guys get shown the door with trades that had a lot to do with this organization. So you have that vacuum as well, where a little bit, just a little more, just more chaotic across the board. Coaches getting fired, just everything. So I don't look at this team and think they have a dressing room issue for next season. Be any more than what they have to do on the ice. I think whatever they have to be better on the ice, and that'll clean up any of the other stuff. It's going to be different. Again, you lost 4 guys that are really solid people that kind of controlled the room. So that's always just going to lend itself to be different too. But I don't think it has to be problematic.
Not going to ask you about or discuss if they should look at signing Brad Marchand again, because he's got a road to go now in the playoffs. We got to watch what happens there. Let's see. You'll have a much better feel.
That'll be our draft day show when we get closer to that and have more information, right?
Right. That will be that. Where do we go with coaching? I mean, it was on many levels. I mean, very poor special teams this year. Very poor. We're not used to seeing that. Now, part of it's the players, but part of it also had to be coaching, Razor, this year too. And it just, I don't know. I mean, it just didn't. Again, the vibe, it was different. You fire Jim Montgomery, you bring in the interim and Joe Sacco, and it just, we had, again, moments under both guys who led the way, moments of some real goodness for short periods of time, but they couldn't handle their success. They couldn't come out of, both times coming out of breaks, Christmas and 4 Nations, they stunk. Like, I don't even know if I can ask you what happened there. But it was almost like they went in on a high saying, hey, let's finish strong. But then I think they thought about it for a few days, like, oh, maybe we're not this good. Or, like, they were like one of the only teams that probably said, we don't want to go to break. We want to keep playing this way. But I don't even know if it would have been sustainable. My guess is it wouldn't have been, but they did not handle coming out of breaks well.
Yeah, Christmas was a quick turnaround. They had a bad schedule, tough schedule, and they weren't able to grind those couple of wins out at that time. 4 Nations, they had McAvoy and Lindholm out. Like, you're just not surviving. Like,
yeah, the McAvoy thing didn't help.
That crushed them. That there's so much drama and having that in Boston and the whole thing that happened. It just that, and then on top of it, 2 weeks later, everybody got dealt. So, no, I have no idea. I have no sense on coaching. None. I don't know who's out there. I don't know what way they're going to go. It's going to be, what I do know is we'll have a very good idea of what their expectation is going to be for this group next year, or what way the organization's going by who they hire and what they do.
Right.
But beyond that, and that includes Joe Sacco. That, like, I'm not firing him before he gets fired. I'm not doing that. It's not fair to any of those guys. So I just know whatever they do will be telling in how they're seeing the next couple of years with this team. But again, no, 0 cents. I haven't got anybody. I haven't had one name whispered to me. I haven't had one name or two names that are like, what about this guy, that guy, other than, all 20 teams and 20 coaches that are out there right now. So,
right. I haven't either.
I really have no sense.
Yeah.
Really have no sense at all.
So we're going to do a show at some point after management talks to the media, which is next week. Obviously, media was made aware, via social media. I mean, that we were all made aware, and fans, media, et cetera, that, Charlie Jacobs fully supports his management team of Cam Neely and Don Sweeney. Fully came out and backed them. So they're around for this, this build, retool. I mean, this summer, mega summer. We don't know where they're going to be with coaching. My guess tells me is I love Joe. I do, but my guess tells me that we'll have a new head coach for the Boston Bruins for next season, if only because it's just part of that process of change. With all that said, I wouldn't surprise me if you didn't see more changes to the coaching staff. It Razor after this type of season, it wouldn't. But I don't have any names either. So let's not even, I guess we don't need to go there right now. We're going to do another show at some point next week. It just depends on when we both can get together. Anything else that we need to really kind of get to wrap up the season show? Because this isn't the last show. This is just wrapping up the season.
Yeah, no, I think there's just a lot of unanswered questions. I think, we've kind of touched on some of that and some of the variables, but again, we'll get a lot out of the management meeting. They're going to be probably brutally honest with some answers. And I think that'll give us, again, it'll take a little bit of time, but it won't take too long to really know where they're at and what they're thinking.
All right. Well, we'll bring another show as soon as we get more information, more stuff to talk about. And the plan is at times during the offseason, we're not going to do regular shows, but like always, we will do shows when appropriate. And we will always keep you posted, folks, as to what we're doing. All right, it's going to wrap up this meaty, a bit long. We hope you approve, though. We hope you enjoy. Hope you stayed with us all the way. Season wrap show for the Boston Bruins. A very disappointing season, to say the least. Both of us and many other people that not only do we work with, but we talk with, we know, did not see a complete demise like we saw with this team. I don't know if we saw them winning the Stanley Cup. I know I didn't. I know you didn't either. Well, I'll say I don't think you did. But we saw them as is at the beginning of the year being incredibly different and having a different response. We saw more production from forwards. We saw better stout defense from defenders, and we sure were expecting better goaltending. I did see, and I didn't mention this before, by the way, that, Swayman says, I take accountability for everything. So, that's part of it. And that doesn't surprise me. I knew he did, but he came out and talked about that as well in the media day. So, all right, folks, listen, thanks for everything. Again, we'll be back sooner than later, and we appreciate, though, but please enjoy this if you have a chance. Enjoy our sponsors, too. Again, they help make this show very possible. RC, thank you for putting this all together, getting it going. Razor, any plans coming up or no?
Nada. Hanging out.
Nada.
Waiting for the weather to get good and be here until end of May.
All right. NHL radio for you. I'll be heading to NHL Network a bit and doing a couple of games for the NHL, the national radio for Sports USA. So all good. Razor, you're the best, man. We'll talk to you next week, folks. Thanks for everything. Again, this is not the end, but thanks for all your listening during this regular season. We really appreciate it. That's been Morning Brew with Jaffe and Razor. Go out and really enjoy your coffee.